Hey YouTube, Kira Qualia here, bringing you all my Beastie D, Nova Grappler, Cardfight Vanguard standard deck profile for May 2020. Want to do an update to the Beastie D deck. I know we'll be getting some new Nova Grappler support for standard format later in the year, so I figured we'd do an update to the deck. Finally got around to gathering up all the cards for the Beastie D deck. I know I had to proxy a good amount of the cards for the last deck profile I did for Beastie Ds, but finally gathered up all the cards and changed around some of the ratios I used since the last deck profile. It's a really fun deck. The whole focus of the Beastie D deck is to power up your units and attack your opponent during the main phase using the different powers of Beastie D, Azure, Dragon, and all the other units we run in the deck for that pressure. Just a different take on Nova Grappler entirely. I know they didn't really focus too much on this card or any of cards from this deck for the Monarch, focusing more on the God Hand deck. But this is still a very fun deck, and I definitely will consider looking into the other deck. But I am also excited just to see what other support we will be receiving. I believe hopefully maybe some Riser support for the upcoming Nova Grappler support we'll be getting. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So to start off with the grade 3s, I am running 4 Beastie D, Azure Dragon. On Vanguard, when placed, counterblast 1, draw a card, call a card from your hand to rear, and attack your opponent's Vanguard with that unit. If the attack did not hit at the end of that battle, stand that unit. So that pressure you have during the main phase just means that you can go for the additional attack along with being able to call over that unit since the attack was during the main phase. But if the attack does not hit, you get to restand it. So it's basically like that unit can attack again during the attack step of the turn, and when it attacks this unit, you can counterblast 1, stand one of your rear guards. So even if the attack does hit and you don't have the another rear guard to call over, you can at least use Beastie D Azure Dragon's pressure call to stand up that unit that already attacked for another attack. And if you put it on the imaginary GIF Excel circle, you have that extra draw power, so you should definitely have the additional units to call out onto the field along with that power to hopefully hit your opponent's Vanguard regardless of having to rely on any of the trigger units you got or anything like that also for the deck. I really do like it. It's my main go-to grade 3 for a lot of the plays during the ride step, having both of the abilities for this card focus on the Vanguard circle. For the backup grade 3, I'm also running 4 Ultra Beastie D Illuminal Dragon. On Vanguard, once per turn, at the end of the battle that your rear guard's attack did not hit, counterblast 1, stand that unit, and it gets plus 10,000 power until end of that turn. That unit attacks your opponent's Vanguard. So it's just, another quick attack with this card, just giving you pressure for units that don't hit, being able to repower them up against your opponent for even stronger attacks that they can go for. And on Vanguard or rear, which is why I also like running this as the backup to Beastie D Azure Dragon, since it does have a rear guard ability. Once per turn, when your other unit's attack hits, this unit gets plus 15,000 until end of turn. So even if it's on the Vanguard circle, you're hitting for 27,000 power total with this card alone. It's a once per turn power gain, but can definitely help just to hit against a lot of your opponent's units, depending on even if they get a trigger or not. Adding that 10,000 power, you can still hit with this unit alone without even the boost. And if you get another trigger to add on to this one's power, it's just all that pressure alone that can definitely, just be a predicament for your opponent, depending on, what they have to guard against and just what setup you have with all your different Beastie units on the field. And that is it for the grade 3s, focused on just the Illuminal and the Beastie D Azure Dragon, just as the, I would say, best combo support for the whole deck, relying on them for consistency. For the grade 2s, I am running 4 Kick Typhoon on Vanguard or rear. When placed, if this unit is on Vanguard or an additional rear guard circle, one of your units gets plus 5,000 until end of turn. So this one definitely does help as being the potential one you want to call out when you use your Beastie D Azure Dragon. It'll get the power boost on the additional rear guard circle, but also just being able to give that plus 5,000 to something else in the field can definitely help. So some of the less powerful units can hit against your opponent's Vanguard, especially if the first attack during the main phase against your opponent ends up getting a trigger and then just has enough power to stop a lot of your attacks that won't go unboosted, because we don't run front triggers in this deck. I'm going for more of a critical trigger route just for more pressure with the deck as a whole, so relying on Kick Typhoon's plus 5,000 power can definitely come in handy also. And on rearguard once per turn, when it attacks, if all of the rearguards in your front row have rearguards, you counterblast one and stand one of your other rearguards. So with the pressure alone with this, and also your Beastie D Azure Dragon, you can stand 2 rearguards in total power with that pressure when it attacks. It doesn't even have to hit. All it has to do is attack, and then you have that consistency to go up against your opponent. It's a once per turn effect, but it also, just goes well with that stand pressure that you can go all together with. So you definitely want to run 4 of it, being the main grade 2 in the deck. For added backup, I'm also running 4 Brutal Jack. With this on Vanguard or Rear, during your turn, it gets plus 10,000 power. And this unit cannot stand during the stand phase. And also once per turn, rest 2 rearguards to stand this unit. So with the overall power you have with the deck, you can easily restand it with cards like Beastie D Azure Dragon. If your opponent, let's say, guards against the attack, you can then rely on this card as the potential card to stand when it's on the rearguard circle. It'll get the plus 10,000 power as well, which makes up for the fact that I said we won't be having the front trigger powers in this deck. So just relying on all the different Brutal Jacks to call out against your opponent can definitely come in handy, just being able to have this card be a power unit alone without even having to rely on any of the trigger units. All you have to do is rely on all your other different units to be able to restand this card, since you won't be able to stand it normally during your start of your turn. But even if you just call it out as a normal call, intercept with it, and then call another one next turn, you'll still be able to get the plus power with this card also. And if you have any rear guards that aren't really adding too much to the power boost, you can just rest them to restand this card in the field also. And to finish off the grade 2s, I'm also running 3 Stylish Hustler. I was maxed out of this card, I believe, during the last Beastie D deck profile. But with this one, I decided to go for the 3 of this, just as added backup for this card's overall support. On Vanguard or Rear, when your other rear guard is retired by the ability of your opponent's card, Soul Blast 1 and put one of those cards into your hand. And when an attack hits, this unit gets plus 3,000 power until the end of that battle for each card in your damage zone. So when your other rear guard is retired by the ability of your opponent's card, you have that power just to recycle, which you don't really use Soul for too much else in the deck that we discussed so far. All the cards that do have skills have just been using the counterblasts for a lot of their cards, but this card really does make up for the Soul that you have with this deck. And when it attacks, this unit gets plus 3,000 until the end of the battle for each card in your damage zone. So late game as well, this one definitely does come in handy. It's why I'm also only running 3 of it, because you don't really have too many of the numbers to rely on, and you don't always go up against cards that you're against an opponent that would retire cards. But this one definitely does help just to save your Nova Grappler rear guards, also putting those cards back into your hand for the recycle power, and the fact that it's a Vanguard or rear guard ability is an added plus also. And that is it for the grade 2s. We'll now move on to the grade 1s. I'm running 4 Clay Doll Mechanic, one of the first, I believe, Nova Grappler units we ever got, even in the first set of Cardfight Vanguard, but remade now in a triple rare for standard format. On rear guard, when placed, if you have a total of 4 or less cards in your hand and rear guard, draw a card. So it just helps for that draw power. If you invest in your rear guards and then call this last, you'll have that draw power to rely on to make up for some of the cards in your hand. And also, when you counterblast, retire this unit to countercharge 1. Kind of going for the old ability of Clay Doll Mechanic, being able to give you a countercharge, only having to retire this unit. But the fact that you also get that draw power with this card makes up for that, but also just goes for the counterblast. So even after you boost with this card, if it's already served its purpose, you can just go for the counterblast, retire it, and then get your countercharge back, because the counterblasts definitely do get eaten up pretty quickly in this deck. So having this card to rely on for that save is a big help also. And I know we haven't spoken of too many Beastie D cards for standard format, but I'm also running 4 Beastie D Glands Dragon. With this one, rear guard once per turn. When your other unit attacks, if you have a grade 3 Vanguard with Beastie in its card name, Soul Blast 1 to stand this unit. More of the soul power reliant with this card, using your soul for other abilities aside from your Stylish Hustler. But this card, like I said, only comes up very situation-wise. Other cards like Brutal Jack can rest this one, and then you can just restand it with its own ability if you have a grade 3 Vanguard Beastie in its card name. And just to Soul Blast 1, when your other unit attacks, restanding it makes up for the boost power, since it is an 8k boost as well. So very, very useful for that also. and also for some of the other Beast Deity cards we're running. Also for Beast Deity Scarlet Bird, on rear when placed during your main phase, Soul Blast 1, stand all of your units if you have 2 or more units, and if a Beast Deity White Tiger is in your soul, draw a card. So that's the one card you want to keep in your soul with this deck, just because it relies on that starter, and the one we always have to run in the deck for this power, and also just being able to stand all your units if you invest in Brutal Jack, or, you know, attack with Beast Deity Azure Dragon, don't have any other units to call because you want to call them out to open your guards. Your Beast Deity Scarlet Bird helps to make up for that, and with the additional draw power of just having the White Tiger in the soul is another added plus also. It's why you also want to consistently ride into different Beast Deity Azure Dragons just to keep that soul alive in the deck also. And to finish off the grade 1s, I run 2 Drill the Duel. On rear, when it boosts, discard a card from your hand, and until the end of turn, when your opponent would call a card from his or her hand to the guard circle for that battle, the boosted unit he attacked, or he or she, must call 2 or more at the same time. So it just helps for your opponent to eat up their resources in the hand. I'm only running 2 of this card because it's more situational than a lot of the other grade 1s in the deck that just help overall for the plays that the deck is meant to do with draw power and restanding, but this just for the pressure as well. For that discard investment can help if your opponent is down a couple more cards and you really do want that attack to go through. And for the grade 0s, for our starter in the deck, we actually have to focus on one. I run Beast Deity White Tiger. It goes with our Beast Deity Scarlet Bird. Otherwise, you know, the starter wouldn't really matter, but still needing it for that play, especially other than that just being the when wrote upon draw card, and also I believe with the errata coming soon with the other starters, it's going to be able to give us the additional, I would say, gift or shield in our hand item from outside of the deck also to use. And for the trigger count, I decided to go with the 8 critical for this deck. Like I said, there's plenty of ways to power up, but these criticals definitely help just for overall pressure against your opponent. So 4 Shining Lady and 4 Red Lightning for the critical trigger lineup. For the draw trigger, running 4 Twin Blader, being the Sentinel for the deck as well. So pretty standard for all of the decks in this format. And lastly, the 4 Wall Boy. I'm curious to see what kind of heal trigger we'll be getting, if any new ones, in the new set with Nova Grappler. So definitely something to look forward to as well. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoy the video. Whether we get Beast Deity support, Risers, or more God Hand support, I'll definitely be looking forward to it. But until then, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira Qualia out.